Hey, I'm back. It's part 2 of learning the Jungian psyche. Carl Gustav Jung, who is a big name in our field, he's responsible for a lot of influential writings. I highly recommend, if you like this stuff, check out Man and His Symbols by Carl Jung. And it's got a lot of pictures, so if you're not into a lot of words, pictures are really cool. So check out Man and His Symbols and you'll get a better understanding of this kind of stuff. I left off the first part talking about introjections. Well, there's another half of this. So introjections are just what we take in from the world, but what about what we throw out onto the world unconsciously? Those are called projections. So when you say, somebody's projecting on you, I'm going to run out of room, projection. So we're projecting things. That's when we take our beliefs and we throw them out onto the world unconsciously. We're not aware when we do this. We just do it without thinking. What are some projections? Well, one type of projection is a persona projection. Persona is a mask, and the plural is personae, if I can fit it on my whiteboard. So a persona projection is when we adopt a mask or a way of being for a certain audience because we think that that's what they want to see. So what we're projecting is what we've been told to think other people want of us. That's the mask that we wear. And this can happen in multiple circumstances. So I was in a fraternity. I have a little bit different persona when I'm in my fraternity. I try not to be, but sometimes it just comes out because that was 15 years ago. Still can't believe I'm that old. But when I was in my fraternity, I acted a different way. I wasn't a very authentic person when I was in college. I changed based on the circumstance and the environment. Not proud of it. It's just the way it is though. And so I try to be more authentic now. Chances are you have areas in your life where you'll put on a mask, either in front of your parents or your grandparents or your best friends or your loved ones or the softball team or whatever it is. You'll slightly change and you won't necessarily be aware of it until somebody points it out to you. So that's why it's unconscious. It's unconscious because we don't know until someone else points it out to us. Another projection that we have is something called a anima or animus projection. Now, the anima projection, or anima, sometimes people say, is the feminine counterpart to a masculine psyche. I'm a male, I have a masculine psyche, but I also have a piece of femininity to me. And this may be hard for some people to digest, but this is where we get, tapping into your feminine side. So what is traditionally masculine? Strong, tough, bold, hunter-gatherer type. What is traditionally described as feminine? Soft, nurturing, caring, etc. So I can do both of those things. Where this comes out, by the way, the animus is the masculine counterpart to a female psyche or a feminine psyche. So where this comes out, the best example I can think of is in a dating scene. If we're out hanging out in public and we see a member of the opposite sex and we think, man, that person's really attractive. For me, it would be a woman, and forgive me, babe, I'm not cheating on you. This wedding ring is for you, and I'm just describing something. But if I'm in a bar and I'm a single man and I see an attractive female, I might start projecting all sorts of stuff onto her that she may not have and she may not even be capable of fulfilling. But because I've been introjected to believe certain things about that woman or about women in general, I'll start putting qualities on her that she's not aware of. So I might walk up to her and we start having a conversation. I'm thinking all these things about her, and then she starts talking to me and none of them are true. What's happening is my ego version of reality is coming and colliding with actual reality. Now, if I'm not good at reconciling that, I may try to put her into my box to make her fit my world. And that's totally not fair to her. And we do this all the time to people everywhere. We ascribe qualities to them that they don't have or that they're not aware of or they're not capable of fulfilling. And then we end up getting disappointed and yelling at them like they did something wrong. So beware of your anima or animus projections. Ladies, you have your animus projection that you'll throw onto males, and it doesn't always have to be positive. Sometimes if you experience negative relationships in the past, or if you had parents who didn't fulfill their roles adequately, you may start to unconsciously ascribing those qualities and characteristics to people who had nothing to do with your parents, but because they fit that role, you just start throwing stuff on them. So be careful of that. The next one that I'm really excited about is something called the shadow projection. Now, the shadow is that part of the psyche that we don't want to acknowledge about ourselves, but we're real quick to point out in other people. So for thousands and thousands of years across many, many cultures, this concept has existed where we have phrases like, when you point a finger at someone, 3 are pointing back at you, meaning take a look at yourself before you judge others. There's a scripture that reads, mind the plank in your own eye before pointing out the speck in somebody else's. That's a shadow projection issue. There's the yin and the yang, the half circle that's divided, black on one side with a little bit of white and white on the other side with a little bit of black. So these are all representations of the shadow projection, or the shadow aspect of the psyche. And the way this manifests in common parlance today, or common acting out, is we'll see somebody and see some quality in them that we don't like and say, oh, I could never be like that. Well, that's not me. I would never do that. Well, that's just simply not true. As Dr. Conte once said, if a human has done it, it is human nature. All humans have the same capacity for great and terrible within their psyche. So if I'm looking at somebody who's committed horrible crimes and done awful things to people, and I say, oh, I could never be like that, what I'm doing is I'm discounting my own ability to do those things. I absolutely have the ability to do those things. Take advantage, mistreat, break trust. Similarly, there's something called a golden shadow. Now, the golden shadow is when we do the exact same thing. I could never be like that, to somebody who is worthwhile and contributing and very valuable and highly thought of. So take a Bill Gates, for example. I could never be like that. Well, it's not really about the behavior of being a billionaire. It's more about the spirit behind it, which is successful, philanthropic, innovative, donating to charity, leader. I can do all those things. Billionaire is reserved for very, very small fraction of people. So we don't want to look at the outward behavior so much as the spirit behind the behavior. Similarly, with the people who committed awful crimes and done awful things, it's not about the molestation or the violence or the robbery. It's the, can I do those things that victimize other people? Yes, I could do those things. The act is influenced by this, by the interjections. So if I grow up in a family full of drug and alcohol abuse and maybe violence, the way that I work out my shadow will probably be in the way that I learned it. It won't be in some other way. For me, I grew up in a very great family, super, super nice, and very, very well intentioned. So the way that I act out my shadow, the aspect of me that I'm not proud of, that I don't want to acknowledge, it's not going to be in violence. I wasn't raised in a violent family. It'll come out in some other way. So I want to be aware of that so that I can choose differently. I don't want to choose the path of negativity. I want to choose the path of righteousness. And the only way to do that is to acknowledge that I have the capacity to do it in the first place. Because if I don't, then my chances of actually walking that out increase greatly. So I want to say, yeah, I absolutely have the potential to be mean and treat people poorly. And because I'm aware of it, I can then choose to walk a different direction. The final projection that we have is something called the true self. So this is when your true self, your God-given thumbprint, comes out in all its glorious splendor. And you just have that moment where you go, yeah, I did the right thing there. That was really me. It felt just really authentic, and I'm good. I'm confident. I feel good about that. And just like that, it'll usually disappear because the interjections will cover it up. So I believe that in increasing consciousness, you can only ever approach that true self. Now, it doesn't have to be, centered. It could be somewhere over here. But the point is, true self is buried in the unconscious, covered up by whatever's going on in the world around me. And I want to try my best to access that. The idea being that I can only ever approach it. I can't ever fully achieve it, because if I were to, then that would put me on par with God himself. And I'm not God, I'm a human. And if you read Christian literature, the only person who was fully God and fully man was Jesus. And I don't want people to think I'm Jesus. So I'm not going to pretend that I can ever be fully conscious, because I don't think I'm capable of being God. But I certainly can make efforts to approach full consciousness and make myself as aware as possible, so that I have intentionality behind my actions and I'm not just acting unconsciously, projecting things onto the world and stumbling through life blind. Interesting to note as I wrap this second part up, this subconscious divides the two. And if our psyche is always knocking and our true self is asking us to look deeper, what ends up happening is it's being met by these defense mechanisms. At night when we fall asleep, that goes away, and we have free access to everything that we've ever experienced. All of our senses, sight, smell, sound, taste, touch, everything we've ever experienced goes into our psyches. The problem is at night, when we have full access and our psyche is fully communicating with us, we don't have the language to interpret what it's saying. So it comes out in the form of dreams, symbolism, archetypes, mythology. And then we wake up and we go, what the heck was that all about? There's a message behind it. And that message is as unique as the individual who's dreaming it. So when we wake up and that line goes back to where it was, we're back to separating consciousness from unconsciousness. Dream interpretation is pretty cool. I might do a dream video here in the future, but for now, just know that this is one guy's idea. If you like it, that's cool. If you don't like it, that's fine too. I'm not forcing it on anybody. I just think it's a neat idea to look at ourselves and a neat lens through which we can examine our behaviors. I left you with a story the first time. I'll leave you with a story now. The unconscious is similar to the ocean, and a lot of analogies have been made that way. The consciousness would be like the beach that you're sitting on next to the ocean. There may be a city behind you that you're aware of, the plane that you flew in to get to the beach, or the bike you took. And then the ego would be like your little blanket with your little umbrella and your little drink. And you're pretty comfortable there. Feels good. You know it real well. You know your blanket, you know your lunchbox, you know your drink, you know your beach server who's bringing you the drinks. You don't know the ocean super well. And it's scary to go into that ocean, especially without a guide. So it's easier just to stay where you are on your little blanket, on your little beach, in your space of awareness, than to go explore everything else that's out there. The ocean, the multiple cities around the world. But how much more potential is there in the ocean and in all across the world if you just leave your little beach blanket? Take that into consideration. Think about challenging what you think you know and inviting the rest of the world to teach you some more about yourself. If you like these videos, continue watching the YouTube channel. If you don't like the videos, that's fine. I'm not attached to it. My ego is healthy enough to say that you can walk away. But you can also go to the zephyrwellness.org website if you want to read more and learn more. Thanks, and hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you again soon. Wishing you good mental health.